Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BTS Career Zone. Today, I am joined by Danielle Moore, who is Head of Training and Competence at True Potential. Danielle is going to give us some insight into the world of compliance, and we're going to understand what her background is, what skills and experience are necessary to work in compliance, but also the opportunities both to get into compliance and once you're working in that field. We really hope you find this video useful, and if you have any suggestions for videos we can make in the future, please do let us know. So let's get started. We're absolutely delighted to have you on the BTS Career Zone. Like I said, I know you're really busy, particularly as we move into tax year end. So I'm just going to get started if that's okay.
That's fine.
Perfect. So my first question for you is, what is your job role and what does it involve on a day-to-day basis?
So I am the head of training and competence in True Potential Wealth Management. So the purpose of my role is to obviously not just monitor the team within T&C, but also actually monitor and supervise all of our restricted wealth management partners in the firm who are authorised in the firm. So we have to ensure that they remain fit and proper and competent to complete their role.
And in terms of your background then, how did you end up in compliance? And was it something that you knew you always wanted to do?
Not initially. I think my CV is very colourful from when I left school up to where I currently am in my career. I've had many different job roles in working in bars and restaurants. I was a croupier at one point working in a casino when I was at university, but it was kind of when I'd left university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had a history degree. I'd originally wanted to become a teacher, but I couldn't get onto a PGCE course. So I was thinking, right, what do I want to do? What do I find interesting? And I actually started working for banks. So it was a separate project where we were dealing with sanctioned payments. So it was very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot, learning about sanctions, but also sanctioned individuals and sanctioned countries, and obviously the rules and regulations around those. We had to complete extensive research because it was a retrospective project that I was working in. And then when that finished, I went into another sanctioned role within compliance for another bank. Because these projects, they were only 6 to 12 months. When the final one ended, I didn't actually know what to do. So I ended up working in radio, which was completely different to compliance. And then when that finished after 5 years, I started getting a bit bored. And I knew that with everything that I had done previously in my career with the different roles, compliance was the one that I enjoyed the most. So I wanted to get back into compliance somehow. So coming to True Potential, it allowed me to obtain the qualifications that I needed within the grad course, and it came at the perfect time.
Going from sort of the very beginning then, for people that are new to the industry or for people that don't have a lot of exposure to compliance, what actually is compliance?
So compliance is made up of rules, policies and procedures that all individuals must follow in all aspects of their job just to ensure good outcomes. We're usually not the most liked team or department within a firm because, of course, we're monitoring everybody to make sure that they follow these rules. There's a reason for them. We know why they've been put in place. So yeah, that's pretty much compliance in a bundle, just rules that you need to follow.
So you've mentioned a little bit about your background. So how did you actually find out about your first ever compliance role then? How was it sort of on the internet? Did you have key contacts in the industry?
I think it was a friend at the time, from what I can remember. I'm going back at many, many years. I think it was back in 2008. There was a project opening up locally where I lived, where they were actually going to be looking at retrospective bank payments. back in 2001. Obviously 9/11, that sort of thing. We had to review whether or not the bank in question had any or had funded any payments to terrorism prior to 9/11. So that in itself was very interesting. I can't actually remember how that came across. I'm positive it was a friend who had been part of a separate project. So obviously within project and contracting work, it's usually word of mouth that goes around. Oh, there's a new project opening here. This is what it's going to be dealing with. So he actually then informed me, we're looking for individuals to take up a role of reviewing retrospective bank payments. Would you be interested? And I was, obviously found it very interesting. And then, like I said, because of word of mouth, the next role that I stepped into was a role in Birmingham, which wasn't local to me. So that was like 200 miles away from my home. I was working away, obviously Monday to Friday, came home on a weekend, and that was very similar. But it was live payments. So whereby the first project was reviewing retrospective payments, this was actually live systems. So I was working what we called Australia hours. I was working midnight till 8 and checking Australia payments to make sure anything would be stopped. If of course it was a sanctioned payment, and there was a lot of information and a lot of research we had to obtain to confirm that these payments could actually go through.
Suppose we go into roles and we build up in our head what they're going to be like. Is working in compliance what you thought it would be? Is there anything that's really taken you by surprise?
Not really. I suppose it is an ever-changing world in the sense that I'm a very organized person and I like to have my diary planned out in advance. If there's specific meetings I need to attend, what I need to plan for. However, within compliance and within my role in particular, it can change day to day. So that could be whether any last minute situations arise that I need to step in and assist with, if there's any specific tasks that I need to complete. But that in itself keeps it interesting. So I know no 2 days are going to be the same and it's not going to get boring.
And would you say that there's many opportunities available for compliance? And how often would you say compliance roles come up?
I would say that there's always availability within compliance, depending on obviously the firm that I'm currently working for. We're quite a large firm. We're constantly expanding, constantly having new advisors join the firm. So obviously within that, we need to ensure that we have the resource to be able to monitor these advisors. So there are always opportunities within compliance. Our compliance department is made up of different sections. So we have T&C, the training and competence team. We have monitoring and control. There's also our file checkers, who are obviously reviewing all of the submissions coming in from advisors, and there's always complaints as well. So compliance as a whole is made up of different departments. There's always the opportunity to be involved in some aspect. Like I said, because the firm is constantly expanding, we are always looking for qualified individuals to join the team.
Would you say, so when I speak to people about compliance, people often say to me that, oh, people just use it to get a bit of experience, they just use it as a step to become an advisor. But actually, I would argue that it can be a career in its own right. So what's your take on that?
I agree, it can definitely be a bit of both. There will always be different avenues within compliance that people want to go down. Some people might want to begin their career within a compliance role prior to becoming an advisor, which obviously would make sense. You've then got an understanding and a background as to what you're now expected to be completing in your advisory role. However, others like myself, I prefer to work in compliance for the foreseeable. I would like to continue to monitor and supervise, because things are changing in regulation all the time, to keep on top of those, to know exactly what it is that these advisors need to actually be completing.
When someone enters True Potential, what would be the entry sort of position for them, and what are the next sort of steps in the career process?
Within True Potential, I joined on the grad course, so I've been with True Potential now for over 5.5 years. it was when they were actually bringing people in on a grad course to kind of fast track you to get a level 4 qualification as a minimum.
Right.
Whereas the way they complete their grad courses now is over a period of 2 to 3 years, I think it is. We have a lot of our admin within the entire firm. So whether that's admin from a compliance perspective, admin from a customer care perspective, we have the opportunity for everybody to become level 4 qualified.
Right.
So even if you wanted to come in as an admin, sort of like the first stage, you can continue to complete the necessary exams and the firm will cover the cost of that.
Perfect.
We're actually encouraging a lot of people to progress professionally within the firm. Doesn't really matter what entry level you kind of join us, we will encourage you to get more qualifications.
If you've got someone wondering, what should I work in? Why would you be telling people choose compliance? Why would you say that?
A personal preference for me. I am a stickler for the rules. I do love compliance, which is quite sad at times. But day to day, the role is interesting. So like I said before, things are constantly changing from a regulatory perspective. No 2 days will be the same. You're constantly learning and building on your professional development just to progress within the industry. So it's the interesting aspect of it and things that are changing all the time that would encourage me to join compliance.
Perfect. And obviously that's been proven by the introduction of Consumer Duty, hasn't it, recently, which has shaken up how we do things in the industry. So that's just a clear indicator of how fast everything can change. In terms of adding to your team then, what sort of skills and experience would you be looking for when someone, you're interviewing someone?
They have to be a people person. We would obviously encourage people to, depending on the type of compliance role that they would be looking for, obviously there are some that are sort of like behind the scenes. So file check-in, for instance, there's not necessarily that regular face-to-face discussion with advisors. However, from a T&C supervisor perspective, you obviously have that regular interaction with advisors. So we would encourage obviously somebody with a good personality, but we would also like them to have had a level of experience working within compliance or a compliance background, any type of compliance role previously. If of course you're wanting to complete a specific role, so say for example admin, you don't necessarily need a specific qualification. However, for a T&C supervisor role, we would expect you to have a minimum of a level 4 qualification.
Okay.
And then of course we would encourage you to pass EF6 because that's specific to the supervisory role in itself. So it's having a minimum of level 4 within T&C, but also then the ability to progress and complete additional qualifications when needed.
Say we've got someone completely fresh into the industry and they want to go into compliance. What sort of minimum qualifications would you be recommending to them at that point?
I would definitely think of the likes of motor protection qualifications, so your CMAP or your RO5.
Yep.
Just as a starting off point. Then you can then obviously build on that and then look to obtain your additional ROs, such as your pensions and your investments, that sort of thing. Like I said, we actively encourage all of our staff, depending on what entry level they're at, to obtain a level 4 qualification. So within our compliance admin team, 3 of those individuals are in the process of completing their ROs. One of them has RO6 coming up in April, and then once she's qualified as level 4, there are then different opportunities and different avenues for her to progress in, depending on what she feels more confident doing. If she wants to become a head office advisor in our central advice team, there's the opportunity to look into that. Or of course, she can step into a T&C supervisor role or a potential file checker as well.
Let's just summarize then and look at sort of what the best parts are of working in compliance and also what the worst parts are. I've got a slight feeling I kind of know what the worst parts might be from what you said earlier, but let's go for it and say what's the best thing first of all?
knowing that there is a structure and a set of specific rules to follow. So if they are followed correctly, then there's not going to be any harm to clients or other individuals. But then on the flip side to that, I suppose the most challenging part of working in compliance is, of course, making sure that everybody is following those rules on a regular basis. So there is a lot of monitoring and a lot of supervision to be had to ensure that things run effectively and smoothly. But yeah, from a compliance perspective, like I've said, we're not necessarily the most liked team within the firm, because of course we are the ones making sure that people follow the rules, but people know why we're doing it. It's to protect clients, it's to protect individuals, advisors, but also from a reputational perspective, it's to protect the firm as well.
Yeah, so you've got to be brave. You've got to stick to your guns, and if you know that something isn't right, you've got to be able to say that, haven't you? Really?
Exactly, and because you'll have the regulation and the policy and procedures to back that up.
So, have you got any further advice that you would give to someone who's wanting to get started?
I think the first thing is think of what element of compliance you'd like to be involved in. Like I said, there are a lot of different avenues within compliance itself. You have complaints, you have file checking, but find out what interests you the most. Do you prefer being in the forefront and actually having that face-to-face, regular interaction with advisors? Or do you prefer to work behind the scenes? Do you enjoy investigative work, monitoring individuals? Whatever interests you in those areas, that's where I would suggest you look at how you can get involved.
Perfect. Okay. Well, no, that's been so great, because I think even though I've worked in the industry for quite some time, I myself didn't know an awful lot about compliance, other than they keep us in check and they make sure that we're doing the right things, even if we don't always love them, like you say. But I especially didn't know that you have all of those different departments within compliance itself. So there's so many opportunities. But that has been really, really insightful. Thank you so much for that, Danielle. It's been great. And obviously, for any individuals that are potentially looking at applying for any roles, you can just head to the BTS Careers Zone. True Potential, I believe, are actually hiring at the moment. I believe you've also got your own careers website as well. So that's something you can look at if you are interested in getting into compliance. Well, that brings this video to a close. We hope you found it useful and it's given you some real insight into the world of compliance. A big thank you to Danielle Moore and True Potential for helping us to create this content. If you do want to look at applying for a position in compliance, you can navigate the vacancies available on our website. I will pop the link to the Careers Zone below. Alternatively, if you have any queries, you can drop us an email at inquiries@bespoketrainingsolutions.com.